All right, this one is about the DC car versus Serenos, man. I know y'all like to hear about that, so I'm gonna have to get it to you, man. I'm gonna have some special guests up here to speak on all this. But this is about the DC versus Serenos car. All right, so sit back, enjoy the ride, and let me do what I gotta do. All right. All right, now check it out. So this is what it is. We out in Lompoc, so you understand. Lompoc is the home of the Surenos. They deep out there. That's where I went out there and I seen literally about 300 Serenos standing in the yard, and it looked like an old Roman gladiator meeting. I mean, it was deep. And one thing I respect about the Serenos, I'm OG, so I got to give respect where it's due. What I respect about the Serenos is whenever they have their meetings, they all get dressed and put on their khakis, creased up, and you would think they was going to a religious service, Now, when they out there, could you imagine 300 men in a circle and one man in the middle, and he's talking and he has everyone's undivided attention. No one is talking to each other and holding their own conversation. Everybody's focused on the speaker and they're speaking about their agenda, their movement, and how to hold things down on the compound. So now, they was real respectable. Let's get that right, But they didn't deal with blacks. We're going to keep it 100. Now, but they respected the blacks. Let's get that right. Now, they send the DC dudes over there. This when they first put a lot of the DC dudes in the system. They closed down Lawton, So they sent a lot of them out there to Lompoc. And when they get out there to Lompoc, this is their first time, in the federal system, and their first time seeing this many, Serenos or, Mexicans, not disrespect when I say that, because from the East Coast, we just look at, the Spanish people out west as Mexicans, and out here on the East Coast, we look at them as like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. We put everybody in that category. That's from our ignorance and lack of, understanding the cultural background, because they wasn't in our geographical location for us to know the proper terminology. But they said, a bunch of DC dudes out there for the first time. And of course, they sent some men, some young dudes, some crash dummies, some old heads. So it's a mixture. So they had to get a understanding of how it works out there. Now, DC, they do their own thing. Nobody tells them what to do. Let's just get that right. But, DC speaks for DC. So you understand. And that's why they so respected, because they know how to follow protocol. And the men, the OGs, they work on morals and principle, and they follow the code of conduct of being a gangster. Gunshots to the gangsters. Gunshots to the gangsters. Gunshots to the gangsters. Now, the DC dudes get out there, but they get a lot of little young dudes, and they mix it in with the Bloods and the Crips and the GDs and the Vice Lords and the Black Gorilla family and, the Dirty South. And, they just mix it with everybody. And, with so much drugs and wine, because they didn't really care what went on out there as long as you didn't jump on the police, the administration. So you get all of them out there, and you got dudes borrowing from the store, man. You know what I mean? No intentions on paying. You got dudes taking, wine and drugs, and weed on credit, no intentions on paying, So now, gambling, no intentions on paying, So when they get out there and they start running around like this, these young dudes, they start owing debts. Dudes from other cars start feeling away like they're taking advantage. They ask them about their money, and they're like, man, I'll see you later, Joe. I'll see you later, Joe. And they keep it moving. You know what I mean? Like, man, screw you, And, that's basically how, the other cars are taking it. So now when they do that, they owing money and the other cars ain't feeling it, so they ready to move on, right? So now they go to who they consider as the men of the DC car, and they say, man, such and such owe me da. He been spending me, he been this, he been that, and the men would pull them up, get them in order, right? But it was times because nobody do anything without following protocol, and making sure it's not going to harm the rest of the car. Y'all remember I taught y'all that the car just means like the crew, the gang, if you want to put that terminology on it. So nobody do anything without checking. So they out there, they own, and of course the other, races and and the Bloods and the Crips and the other black, races as well. They feel like the DC dudes is, treating them as suckers, So now they ready to move on the dudes that owe them, but not on DC, but figure they moving on the men that owe them. So when they roll out, because dude owe them a little money, and he say, man, where my money at? DC dude say, man, I'll get you when I get you, Joe. You know what I mean? And keep it going. Say real aggressive, and they wasn't feeling it out there. And their numbers was always bigger than DC numbers because that's their backyard. So while they out there in their backyard and they doing that now, of course, the Bloods or the Crips or, or the Serenos or Border Brothers or Paisas, they take off on them, boop, 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 and they get to fighting. But now that's a violation because they put their hands on a DC brother. So now the old heads that's, laying down the rules and the foundation, they're not feeling it. So now they ready to go to war. Even though their homies was wrong for the debts that they inquired and refused to pay, the old heads don't stand for that. They believe if you take something, you pay. Don't take nothing that you don't intend to pay because you don't know how far a man is going to go and want to, what level he's going to want to take it to before, you know what I mean? It goes crazy. But at the same time, now if you put your hands on a DC brother, it don't matter what he did wrong. You violated because you should have came to us and we would have put our hands on our own and checked our own, but we're not going to allow anyone outside of the car to put their hands or check one of our own. So now all hell breaks loose. It's a big old riot. So everything jumps all boop, boop, boop. So they grab all the DC dudes and they lock them up. It was such a big joint because the DC dudes, they came out there and the first thing they did was get their knives. So they come out there, they got their knives, they put the work in. So the administration decided they're going to lock up all the DC dudes and keep them off the compound. They kept them off the compound for about 18 months. But at the same time, while they're keeping them off the compound, that's in Lompoc, California. Their central office there is in Dublin, California, but they're getting heat from Washington, D.C., saying why we can't send any D.C. dudes to your compound in Lompoc in the West Coast and you put them on the line. What, you don't have control of your prison that you can't protect the D.C. brothers? But mind you, the D.C. brothers doing a damn good job protecting themselves, and they're really trying to protect the others from D.C. Just keeping it 100, gunshots. Just keeping it 100. So now when they do that, they was told they had to start putting D.C. dudes back on the line after 18 months with no D.C. on the line. So they let out about maybe 5 to 10 brothers from D.C. When they let them out from D.C., even though it's 18 months later, a lot of dudes they got into it got transferred. There's some still there, and everybody already know, what's going down with that. So while that's going down now, they got them in a joint, right? And they got them all on the thing. So they all on the compound. They put out 5 or 10 DC brothers. So when they go out there, the first thing they do is they go get their knives. So they walking around their knives, and they walking around in a crew, like in a pack, to be able to protect each other. Now, the Surenos wasn't feeling them letting them on the line, even though a lot of them that was, in the fight already been transferred to other jails. Talking about the Serenos, that is. But the ones that's dead, they feel like, nah, they not supposed to be on the line, so they screwing their face up, they looking a certain way, and, you know, the DC brothers feel it, but, you know, they not even tripping on that because they got their knives and they know that we all bleed. You know what I mean? He got blood, I got blood, you know? So it depends who's is going to spill and who's going to live and who's going to die. So now the DC stayed with their knives, and, you know, they was literally outnumbered, you know, about at least 100 Serenos to one DC. But the DC still had their chests out. They still moved the way they move, and that irked the Serenos even more. Like, they don't even fear us, you know? And we got them outnumbered, and we Serenos, and we put our work in. So this is the tension that's on the yard. So if one goes to the shower, you know, there was 2 DC dudes standing outside the shower holding down the one DC dude that's in the shower, got his knives, and he taking the shower. When he done, he come out, he go get dressed. You know what I mean? They go stand outside his cell while he getting dressed, you know. And then, you know, he put on his stuff, get suited, booted, then he come over there, and then he stand on line and hold down the other homie when he go take a shower. And when you go to the shower, just so you flip-flop in public clowns understand, nobody wears flip-flops, AKA shower shoes, in the prison to the shower. So brother got on their institutional boots, laced up, walk into the shower in case something pop off. Then when they go in the shower, they go in the shower with their boots, take the boots off, put it by the front of the joint, you know. Some brothers even took a shower with their boots on. Could you imagine having to live like this? So if you youngins want this, feel free to do it. It's there for you. Feel free to do it. So now they sit there and they, you know, take their shower, and that's how they hold each other down. When they call chow time, like to go eat dinner, lunch, breakfast, or whatever, all the DC brothers, they waited for each other, and then they all walked to the kitchen together. They had their little area. They sit in the kitchen together, and they eat their food, and they watching each other's backs when the whole other side of the kitchen is all Serenos, Paisans, you know, border brothers. And you only got these 2 or 3 tables, you know, over here for DC that wasn't even filled with men because it wasn't even that many of them there. So now while they're sitting there eating their food, you know, when they're done, they wait till everybody's done. They pick the trays up real militant, and they walk out the kitchen together and dump their trays, and then they walk back to the unit together, you know? And then they stand outside their cells or outside the unit, and they looking around to make sure that nothing is being plotted against them because they know they're public enemy number 1 out west. Yes, I said it. DC was public enemy number 1 in the prison system out west because they're knowing to go head to head with the Serenos who normally run the prisons out west. But the DC brother wasn't in that. So now they sitting in there, and that's how they moving. So when they send these 5 men out there, you know, the heat and the tension was so strong that they was feeling it, that they just said, you know what? We're going to have to do something. So when this is going on, we know they outnumbered. So you got New York, you got Jersey, you got Philly, you know what I mean? You got Baltimore, you know, we got the East Coast is going to hold down the DC car because we from the East Coast. But it's a DC beef, but they're black and it's another race. So that's when everything goes out the window and we come together as one for survival of our race out there. Now, so while we in there, even the Bloods and the Crips is on standby because it's a race thing now. When it's a race thing, it don't matter where you from, who you beefing with, of your race. You must hold them down because if you show weakness in the race, it don't matter if you a Blood, a Crip, a GD, a Vice Lords, a Black Guerrilla family, you know, they look at it like you're weak so we could target these individual little pockets. these individual little cars. So all the black cars come together. Like when something go down, all the, you know, I don't want y'all to feel no way, but I'm just gonna say, 'cause that's the way we talk. You know, all the Mexicans come together. You know, and no disrespect to them. And if anyone feel disrespected, I personally apologize. But that's just the way we look at it, because we're from the East, so we don't know the difference with the different gangs and all that. So the Mexicans come together, the blacks come together, and we all there. The Bloods and the Crips, they on standby. They not trying to get in it because they in their backyard. They not trying to get transferred. They got their thing going on. And they had their run-in with DC too. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they got to put their running aside that they had with DC to hold down the black race. Cash App on the screen. I don't care if it's $1 or $5. Make sure there's no number 1 in my last name. Push the logo and make sure it says that the account was created 2020. So now they all out there. The Bloods and Crips, they on standby, and they already know DC gonna set it off. But the whole point is, when they set it off, the Bloods and Crips is on standby. You know, New York, DC, Philly, like I said, you know what I mean, Jersey. Everybody's there, and those are normally Muslims. You know. So the Muslim car is also involved, and they're holding them down as well. You know, if things get out of hand, you better believe everybody's getting involved to fight against the Mexicans, right? But the beef is normally with the Serenos because they are aggressive like DC. That's why they don't get along. Remember those fish when you was younger that they had? I think it was called Siamese fighting fish or something like that, where they used to keep them in one little glass bowl, couple of little rocks, and they was real pretty in colors. And if you go in the pet store, you see they put the bowls next to each other. They spend all day swimming around the tank, bumping their head on the glass, trying to get to each other in that tank. That's how it is in the prison. You know what I mean? The same way. So everybody's in there and everybody's holding down their race. But mind you, if they get into it with DC, it becomes an East Coast thing. And then, like I said, New York, Jersey, Philly, you know what I mean, Baltimore, we all get involved. The Muslims get involved. We all get involved to hold them down. But we knew that DC had a lot of crash dummies, a.k.a. young dudes that didn't know how to bid. And that's where it was the older dude's job to put them in their place and teach them the code and conduct of being a man in prison. A lot of brothers from all geographical locations grew up in prison, and it depends on the old head from their geographical location for how their bid is going to be shaped for the rest of the trip. Now, DC dudes decide to say, you know what, F that. I ain't gonna put everybody, in danger like that. So we're gonna have to just take off on these Serenos because it's like, they just still gritting and acting like, we got a beef. So, why wait, for the 500-600 of them to jump on the 10 of us, So they got their knives. So you understand, in the prison, that's why I say Cash App on the screen. I'm giving y'all too much jewels. In the prison, we have something called Mainline. Mainline at lunchtime is where all the big wigs for the prison is there. The warden, the AW, the captain, the SIS, Security Investigation Service, Education Department, Psychology Department, the CMS, the people that fix the buildings. Everybody's up there. And a lot of times it be women. And it be men that's not cut like that run the prison. That's why they try and get an aggressive captain that know how to deal and speak our language. So when everybody's in that kitchen, everybody know that that's the fastest way to get transferred off the compound if you fight in the mess hall. You can fight anywhere you want, but don't fight in the mess hall because you don't want to put these big wigs' lives in danger. So DC said, you know what? The best way to contain it, see, nobody went to the kitchen with a knife. Let's put it that way. Let's keep it in 100. Not too many people, I'm going to say, went to the kitchen with a knife because you get pat search on the way down and you go through a metal detector on the way in and a metal detector and pat down randomly on the way out. And when you go to the yard, you got to go back through another metal detector, another pat down. If you go back to the unit, another metal detector, another pat down. And they on high alert when these big wigs is in the mess hall. So while they sitting there in the mess hall, the DC dude said, you know what? we're gonna take off. So now, even though the mess hall might hold 150, 200 men, and that's from all different races, the DC dudes knew that 9 times out of 10, they didn't have their knives with them. So when they went in the kitchen, after everybody got their tray, they went and ate their food, made sure they got their, they belly filled, because you already know, you don't know how long it's going to be till you get your next meal, because the next meal is at dinner time, and because of the fight, not only are they going to not withhold the food, but it's going to slow down the meal, slow down everything, so you might not get dinner till 9 o'clock at night, and this is 11 in the morning. So, they're not having any of that, just so you can fully understand, Hey, yo, fam, I'm doing a live. I'm gonna call you right back, all right? I'm speaking on the Serenos in DC, unless you want to speak on it, if you want to listen and speak on it. You hear me? Yeah, I'm recording it. You want me to put you on speaker? You want me to call you back? All right, family. Yeah. So, like I said, I answer my phone, man, And, my number's on the screen. And if I don't answer, text me. And when I get a chance, I answer. Because if I'm out in the field, running around the streets, I'm not going to sit there answering the phone, having the phone in my ear. That's for suckers. When you see a dude and he on the street, he's walking down the street, talking on the phone, I don't respect that. You know what I mean? Because anybody know me, don't call me when I'm on the street, because I got to be on high alert. But anyway, so they in the kitchen, we riding, get back. So we in the kitchen, and the DC brothers say, man, this is our best shot to even out the numbers. Because you got 150 dudes in there, maybe 200 dudes in the kitchen from all over, and it's easier to win a battle when the rabbit got the gun. So the DC's the rabbit now, but they ain't running. They took their guns to the mess hall, and after everybody ate, got their belly full, they gave their head nod, and they just jumped up and just, and no disrespect, man, no disrespect. It's like, we don't be knowing when we first get out there who's a Sereno, who's a Buddha brother, who's a Paisan, who's a, independent Mexican. We don't know none of that, So they just jumped up and just stabbed anything Hispanic from the West Coast and started pushing the knives. So now the Serenos, they don't have their weapons with them because, like I said, fastest way to get transferred to bring a weapon or to fight in the kitchen. So they using the trays, the food trays, trying to wave them off and swinging it at them, and, they carrying on, But I do give them credit. Let me tell you this. When you be in that kitchen, knives be hidden everywhere in the kitchen. From the kitchen workers from your car have their knives in there. So now, the Serenos, they swinging the trays, and the DC dudes, and, grabbing the soda machine and the juice machine and the ice cream machine, and they throwing it, boom, boom, boom. Oh, man, I didn't even put the picture up there so y'all can see it. See how I got carried away? Let's get this right, Could you imagine all these brothers in the kitchen swinging food trays, trying to keep the knives up on them, and being the aggressor at whoever got their back turned, and it's a full all-out brawl, but the DC dudes is swinging the knife this way, swinging it this way, swinging it this way, swinging it this. I mean, it was a madhouse. Now, all the administration that work in there, they running to get out the kitchen. You know what I mean? The people that don't want to have nothing to do with it, they're running to get out the kitchen. So everybody's making a break for the door except for the brothers that's in the brawl. And now, if there's a Sereno or even a Mexican that didn't get involved when, or DC or New York, Chicago, whatever, if it's a black person that didn't get involved or a Mexican person that didn't get involved, when the word got out that it was something in the kitchen and you was black in the kitchen or you was Mexican in the kitchen and you didn't get involved, you better believe you're leaving that compound. You're going to be stabbed up and have to leave the compound because of that. Because when something jump, you must move. So now when this happened, they carrying on. So, all the blacks and everybody get involved. So now it's the blacks against the Mexicans in the kitchen, and everybody pushing knives and swinging trays and throwing juice machines. And, Yeah, I mean, it was mayhem. The tables and chairs are screwed down, so they didn't have those. But you got cups in the and the cup trays and the tray holders, and everybody's just grabbing whatever they can as a weapon, swinging. And you got these big Serenos over here that work out every day, sometimes 3 times a day. After every meal, they go out and they work out to stay battle ready. But the blacks did that too. But that's how it is in prison. That's why I let you know, man, the game is to be sold, not told. Oh, man. Yo, like I said, I don't have to say it no more. Y'all understand. So now all hell break loose. Administration trying to run out. Cowards trying to run out. But when the word got out that that the cowards try to run out, you better believe, gunshots, 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 gunshots. They're gonna be gunned down and airlifted out of there. So when they sends everybody to the shoe, after they get it in order, because there was so many people fighting, they couldn't bring in handcuffs because handcuffs are too bulky. So they come running in and they go grab what you call the flexi cuffs. The flexi cuffs is like, how like I went to the thing in Rock the Bells, and they gave me the VIP wristband that went on your wrist, and when they go on your wrist, they tighten it up so that it can't come off your wrist. That's what flexi cuffs are. But they made out that thick plastic like a bag tie, but thick like this. And they put them on your wrist, put them on your ankles, and da 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 da. So that's how they come running in there. So when they try to subdue the kitchen, we're not trying to let them subdue us and put no flexi cuffs on our hands or feet, because now we become prey not only for the police that ran the kitchen, but for the opposition that we're in the kitchen fighting with. I mean, it's just so crazy in there that there's no way we're trying to get subdued in the kitchen at this time, because it could cost you your life. You handcuffed, you laying down, or flexi cuff, you laying down, and somebody come and stomp your face or bust you in the head with a tray or stab you in your face with a knife. Come on. So you don't want that. So everybody's in there fighting. But when it was all done and they took who they taken to the shoe, and it's a special housing unit, lockup, solitary confinement. When you take it back there, everybody start talking through the bars and through the vent, who was rocking and rolling, who wasn't rocking and rolling, and then they're sending kite out and word out. This one in your unit wasn't this, that, he was in the kitchen. Who was in the kitchen that didn't move out at the time when it was time to move out, you better believe you'll see them coming up in the hole within an hour. Because that's how fast the word get out once the compound open back up. So now everybody's up in there that was fighting, and everybody who wasn't fighting was allowed to came back there. But when they came back there, the administration, when they make their little list, of who's in a separatist, like, the Mexicans on one list and the blacks is on one list. So, the Mexican might have a green flag next to him, and the blacks might have a purple flag next to him, and, don't mix black and purple, flags together, from off the list. And then when, the cowards come in, they get, let's say, I'm going to give them a color. It's not the color, but I'm going to give them a color. They might get a pink flag next to them. That means pussy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I said it right. I want to watch the word. Pussy. So they got a pink flag next to them, so they know don't put them with nobody. Only put the pink flags with the pink flags, because those are the cowards that didn't roll. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to try and put them back on the compound, because that means that they're not on man time, and administration need more people that's not on man time then that's on man time. But they also know they have to have people on man time to be able to communicate with the other races and, to keep things in order. But that's how this thing goes, man. Prison is so intricate, and y'all don't understand. That's why I say the game is to be sold, not told. Where else are you going to get information like this that could save your life and prevent your child from wanting to gamble, thinking that it's sweet on the inside, that they're just going to go sliding on the outside, go to prison and live good? No, you go to prison and live by prison politics. So it's like you walking down the street and you see two dudes fighting. You see a black dude and a Spanish dude fighting, and you walking down the streets in society, you're going to mind your business. If you're in the prison and you see this going on, you have to be ready to get involved to help your race. If you don't, you're going to be hit up and airlifted out of there. So that's the way that go. Now, everything just went crazy. So it was like, you know, we all went to the shoe, and then they wind up transferring all the ones that got the knife shots or was doing this in the shoe, or, in the kitchen. If you was involved in that kitchen brawl, you better believe you being transferred. Now, I've been up here long enough. I just wanted to give y'all a little bit of that so y'all fully understand what we dealing with, man. Stay out of prison, stay off the street, and know that Unique Mecca Audio told you, if you decide to think you're tough enough to stay on the street, continue to do what you do. But make sure when the Grim Reaper come and you stand in front that judge or in front those European police, even when their skin is black, they're still European on the inside. You know, the outside is just a coalition. You know, it's just a deflection. So when that happens, you know, just know to just shut the F up. But I'm telling you, Unique Mecca Audio is mainly telling you on this channel, don't get involved so you don't have to make these choices to shut the F up. Don't break the law. Don't come off the porch. Don't steal from anyone. Don't do anything that could wind you up in this environment. It's not worth it. I spent 26 years in there, and I'm here to tell you now, it's not worth it. So don't say I didn't tell you. Don't say you didn't know. You can't use that excuse anymore. It's a wrap. It's over. It is what it is. Let's tap out. All right?
Cheers. Cheers. Toast the crime. Toast the crime.
Fresh out the can of 26, yeah. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. Yeah. What he mentions a gift. Right. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Real. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. An Instagram page and a YouTube you could go and visit. Yeah. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Real. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, make an audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spin a couple bands on the dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a roaring uptown. Baby horn uptown, Dominican bust down. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend the ed. He started in uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community ours. So we can give back to the youth them. Cause they the truth them. And bless up the